live from the heart of the Blue Ridge, Roanoke, Virginia. It's the Just Bernard Show with host Bernard Alvarez. Join Bernard as he shares topics that reveal the real matrix and empower your human experience, including world liberty, the esoteric, suppressed technologies, spiritual ascension, and human consciousness. Humanity has awakened, and our time has come to realize our full potential. And now, live from the Star City, your host, Bernard Alvarez.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Just Bernard Show here on Facebook, YouTube, my website, and all across social media and several other places online. Let me get my camera ready here. Anyway, so we have a really nice guest joining us today talking about something that is very close to my heart, but we're going to get into that in just a moment. I just want to take a moment to say hello to everybody and thank you for this really great week. It's been a really busy week around here. Geez, I've got so much to share with you, but maybe I'll share some of that later on today. But I do want to let you know that those of you that do live here in the Roanoke region, that we are now selling tickets to the Knowing the Tarot Masterclass. So please, if you are in the area, go ahead and get your tickets for that. We are limiting that to about 20 people. As well, Solvolution 2020 was released, I want to say yesterday or the day before. That is the online conference with myself, Mark Nepo, Belinda Womack, and so many others. And it's available now for free. So make sure you check on the links posted below my videos so you can go ahead and sign up for that for free. Anyway, let me tell you a little bit about my guest that's joining me today. I'm very happy that Sam Beasley is joining me today. He is a successful business entrepreneur who uses spiritual principles to establish and build and run his business. He is a charismatic speaker and dynamic workshop leader whose mission is to share what he's learned so others may become successful and fulfilled as well. Sam's first book with Suzanne Lorenz is Wealth and Well-Being, and his new book is called Your Life is Your Prayer, and I hope you can see it. And I don't know if my camera's going to let you see that with the blue screen, green screen. Anyway, without further ado, let me welcome Sam Beasley to the show. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
And so, Sam, I know we got to talk a little bit before the show, and I was telling you that I really appreciate the how shall we say, the subject matter of this particular book, and it aligns very much with my ideas of creating our life through mindfulness, through meditation, and how prayer seems to be very parallel to that. I feel that's a really important topic that perhaps maybe we've forgotten, but we're starting to reawaken to in today's world. Could you tell me a little bit about why and what motivated you to want to write on this particular topic? How did this book come about for you?
Sure. Yeah. I about 19 years ago, I suddenly came to a moment where I couldn't find any thoughts worth thinking in my head. And I just couldn't, they were just gone. And so I started first to borrow thoughts from other people, and then I began to jot down my own, and I'd carry them with me, and I'd actually pull them out of my pocket and read them. And I began to notice that I was writing little prayers, and I started expanding them. And then so at one point, maybe 10 years ago, I shared some of them with my friend, B.J. Gallagher, my co-author. And about 4 years ago, she called me and she said, "Do you still have all those prayers?" And I said, "Yeah, I still write them." And she said, "Well, why don't you give them to me and let's create a book?" And I really jumped at the chance because, you know, BJ's quite a successful author, and I knew I'd learn a lot from her. And so I started writing the prayers in a way to give myself a choice about what I was thinking as I went through each day, and not to just rely on whatever popped up in my mind. And that has been very powerful experience it kind of comes naturally to me now, but at one point I would just literally reach in my pocket and pull out something that I chose to think. And it made all the difference in the world to me. I still do it. I put them in my phone now as appointments. And so the phone buzzes and I look down and here's this wonderful thought. And it just pleases me. It pleases me so much to look down and say, and read, maybe this day is turning out much better than you ever hoped. And or something like that, just something that fills me with joy when I read it.
What a great idea. I have to steal that idea.
Yeah, you're welcome to it. So,
I love that. So many people, especially, with so many different faiths and with so much, how shall we say, imagining and rediscovering of different spiritual paths in today's 21st century world. The term prayer can mean a lot of different things to different people. How would you define prayer, especially within the context of the book?
Within the context of the book, it's a open running dialogue with the divine. And one of the things I've noticed about prayer is that they tend to be repetitive. We don't really pray something once. They almost become chants. And on a really good day, they're great chants. It could be something as, what a gorgeous day. What a gorgeous day. Something that goes through, and it tends to repeat it on a not so good day. They might be, this is never going to work. This is never going to work. It's never going to work. And they just become a chant. So I define it as an ongoing dialogue with the divine. And it came about that way because at one point in my life, I thought I actually kind of controlled the divine in the sense that I could say, okay, stop listening to me now. and I finally realized, no, I'm not that powerful. So then I just decided to just assume I was speaking always to the divine, and it kind of reshaped my life. It required me to become much more conscious of what I was thinking and how I was acting in the world, and so that is primarily the way I think of prayer, as an open dialogue with a greater being.
That's very profound, and I appreciate that that overview of your definition, and especially for me and my definition of perhaps how we are all divine beings within ourselves. So all that chatter that goes on in our mind is that ongoing dialogue, and perhaps we're speaking to the divine within ourselves. So what do they say? Anxiety and worry is praying for bad things to happen. So to become more mindful of that chatter in our mind through something like this could be very, very helpful.
Right. I don't know where the divine resides. So it often occurs to me that one part of me is speaking to something else within me.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So prayer, again, there are so many different definitions, and perhaps from culture to culture, it might mean something a little bit different. But within your book, you've gone back and looked at how shall we say, the events of prayer and how perhaps it's evolved throughout history. What is your take on the history of what prayer is?
Well, it certainly has evolved. It's I think there are records of prayer going back about 5,000 years, and it's taken an incredible number of forms. Everything from paintings as prayer to dance to offering, or early money was used as a form of offering in prayer or making a request. And it's in different parts of the world. We're so used to seeing this now that we can see all over the world, but it includes forms of motion, like that kind of movement, or bowing in prayer, repeated bowing. It's taken many forms. One that's a form for me is singing. I love to sing, and I love to sing about the joy of life. So, and I grew up in churches where singing was really important and a form of prayer, and that still definitely exists. Song as a form of praise, and and now in my life it becomes thoughts and walking forward in prayer and being in service in prayer and viewing the world in prayer, and embracing life in prayer.
Yeah. With that being said, I can't help but draw the parallels of mindfulness. A lot of what you're describing to me is mindfulness, and I can't help but imagine, I don't know if they're Buddhist pilgrims or whatnot that do these long walks, just doing one step, just one long step, one short step, one long step, one short step, and that in itself being a prayer. Which brings us back to the whole concept of mindfulness. Is it fair to say that as we go moment through moment throughout our day in mindfulness, that in itself would be similar to what you're describing as prayer?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. So,
I was going to say, next, could you give us some examples of what that looks like?
Yes. I have grandchildren, and I really love my grandchildren. And so having some honor for that, like yesterday, one of the thoughts that popped up on my phone was, I'm so happy to love my grandchildren. And when I say that, it fills me with love. It just fills me with love to think of them. And so acknowledging little blessings in life throughout the day really sets the tone for joy. It really sets the tone for wanting to be in service with others. I can tell you, I'm blessed to be able to support other people in their visions, in their actions, and I get the opportunity to do that a lot. And it's an absolute blessing. I think of it as a form of wealth. So just to acknowledge how blessed I am in that way, to acknowledge that my life is filled with love and joy and opportunities to serve. I really have come to a point in my life where it's so easy to go forward one step at a time in gratitude, in very conscious gratitude. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate that.
That's wonderful. And I know many of us are striving, I myself still striving to get to that place. Actually, this is a great question for you. Is in reality in today's 21st century world, or actually in any time in history, is there a place where we could say we could live in that way 24/7, or is it, I don't know, I don't want to say the word, it's okay to be distracted and then come back to that place, but when we are distracted, would it be, in your eyes, fair to pray to come back into that place of mindfulness or that centered gratitude?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I've really thought about this a lot, and I've decided that I will take what I'm given, and sometimes what I'm given is hard,
Mhm.
and so I've decided to embrace curiosity as much as I can. So a lot of times, if I find myself in the midst of uh, real discomfort or sorrow, um, my prayer often is, I'm very curious what you have in mind here. And I don't just rule it out as this is not a good thing. So I try to embrace curiosity as much as I can. And I will say to the universe, I'm so curious what you got in mind here. And I hope I understand someday. And rather than just reject the experience, I try to embrace it. So do I want to go back to radiant joy? Yeah, you bet. But I'm I've been really not, I want to say enjoying embracing those less than glorious moments of life. And enjoying might not be the word. Appreciating. I've been really
Yeah.
appreciating that that I come to moments in life where I don't want to sing, and I I don't understand what's going on, and I I just find that curiosity is a much more peaceful way for me to approach those moments in life than um, than declaring it as bad. So
Right.
so uh, so the adoption of curiosity has made all the difference in the world to me. To just say, "Wow, I don't know what's going on here. I wonder if I'll ever understand this." You know? So,
Yeah, it's definitely, how shall we say, it can be frustrating when we're going through
mhm.
difficult times in life, and the reality of it is that there are people in war-torn countries, there are people
Yes,
going through traumas and
correct.
crisis and whatnot,
Yeah.
and I by all means, I hope at the very least, people that are going through those type of experiences have the ability to at least to cling to prayer and to pray for a better way
Yes.
and to return to that joy that we speak of.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It's funny. One of the few times I do pray, um, like I was saying earlier, my definition of the divine within is perhaps what other people would call the soul, the spark of the divine, not the
Yes.
divine necessarily, but a piece of the divine is within
Yeah.
me. And I find that when that alignment is off, is usually when I myself suffer.
Mhm.
And so most of my prayers are to the no name divine, or I might pick one of the 100 deities we have on the planet and
Mhm.
say, please give me the strength and clarity for me to return to that, to that discernment, that wisdom that
Mhm.
brings that joy. And with that said, I'm reading here a little bit about how we can, how how money can be seen as a prayer. And you and I were also talking about um, prosperity prior to the show, and
Mhm.
I love the idea that money is merely energy because it's something you've been given in return for your energy,
Mhm.
and in turn, someone else's energy is being reciprocated by the money that you give them. But as well, the idea of using prayer. I'm kind of combining several talking points here at once, but the idea that using prayer to have a roof over your head, to get the bills paid, I firmly believe that this is all energy, and prosperity goes beyond, as you were saying earlier, we were talking about earlier, beyond just monetary value. So
Yes.
would you like to elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah. I've I've set my intention for 2020 to uh, recognize forms of wealth that aren't monetary. And so the one that you and I mentioned was self-care as prosperity. Um, and that's definitely a form of wealth to me. And honestly, it is of more value now than money. Um, and the love of friends, now is a form of wealth that's more valuable than money to me. So I've been, I just asked for forms of wealth to be revealed to me, and I've come up with quite a list since the first of the year. And one, for example, that I really love is I have a great commitment to humanity and a great commitment to the planet. And those are forms of wealth to me. I did not always have them. And so now to actually feel those commitments in me, it feels like prosperity to me. And I have a great desire to be in service, and that feels like wealth to me. It wasn't always true, that I wanted to be in service. For much of my life, I wanted to be served. And so to get to the other side of that, where I have such abundance that I want to be in service, abundance of time, abundance of love, abundance of joy, abundance of money, abundance of willingness. I have so much of that to be in service is to be in joy now. So
I love it.
Yeah. So
thank you for that. I as you're speaking, I'm being called back to actually a conversation I had 3 days ago, which is, I love the synchronicity of us touching on this topic. Someone, a close friend of mine, had asked me, we were talking about our New Year's intentions, and my intention, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I kind of titled it Super Bernard. And Super Bernard has everything you just described: the time, the ability to serve others, the good health, everything to keep me in alignment with my higher calling. And she said, well, don't you want money? I was like, well, oh no, she said, don't you want prosperity? I said, well, that is prosperity. She said, but what about money? I said, well, and I love how this comes in with the book, is that I said, well, you can pray to have the money to have your bills paid, or you can pray to have your bills paid. Prosperity doesn't care. And when we begin to put limits on prosperity and what prosperity looks like, we're cutting ourselves off from that universal energy, because it can come in many different forms besides zeros on a paycheck.
Yeah. But we have been taught to look for the means rather than to pray for the end. And you gave a great example. We literally pray, give me the money so I can do this, instead of grant me this.
Exactly.
Skip the money.
Skip the middleman.
Yeah, skip the middleman. Yeah, and we were. I think maybe especially in the United States, we're really trying to focus on the means, as if we could ever identify the real means to an end. And that some of the most wonderful things in my life happened in the most impossible ways. I never would have guessed, I never would have been wise enough to pray for the way that they actually unfolded. That's beyond me. It's a thing I try to stay very conscious of, is, am I asking for something and then saying, by the way, do it this way? And I don't really, when I don't actually care, I want the experiences I want. I'd love it if they always came to me in ways that I could never imagine.
Hear, hear. And to be open to that is something to be preyed upon, I would believe.
Yes.
Speaking of, we were talking about self-care, and we're going to begin to wrap up, or actually I'll leave it up to you. I was wondering if you would share a prayer with us, if whether it be for self-care or anyone that you're inspired to move due to our discussion today. If there's what's the prayer you would love to share with humanity at this moment?
I was thinking about that, and I was looking through the book, and something that an experience and an idea that I really like is to embrace what comes. And, you know, sometimes we get into these moments where life is just really good. And if we asked ourselves, so are you ready for what's next? You know, part of me would say, no, you know, this is really good. And I'm not ready for what's next. So a prayer that's in the book that I just really love is, I love my life. So what's next? And it's one that I try to remember to embrace that, to say, I love this experience. What else you got? You know, I know it's happening anyway. It's coming anyway.
That's
I may
right.
as well embrace it. So it's just that idea of saying, yes, this is really good. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm ready for the next thing. So,
that's wonderful. Something we must remember.
Well, it makes it easier when we do. So yeah, it makes it much easier. And then I will, there's a kind of a secondary part of that is, a lot of us are afraid for what's to come. And we know change is coming, and it can be a little scary. So I have a prayer in here, another prayer that I love, that says, Divine, please lift this fear from me and bring me peace. And so those two things together, I'm ready for what's next, and could you bring a little peace with it, because it's kind of frightening.
Absolutely. Hear, hear. Perfect. Perfect. So our guest, of course, today is Sam Beasley. The name of his book is Your Life, Your Prayer. Oh, yeah, I guess if I put it close to my face, it doesn't blur out on the blue screen. Anyway, tell us a little bit about the book, where we can find it and get more information about all the other wonderful work that you do.
Let's see, it's published by Mango Media, so you can certainly just go to Mango Media. Barnes and Noble online has it, Amazon has it. I have spotted it in quite a few bookstores that I've gone by. So it's if you just type in Your Life is Your Prayer, you'll come right to it. Or you can go to my website, yourlifeisyourprayer.com, and it'll be on there. My blogs are on there, and links to the book are on there. Yeah. So
that's wonderful. Well, Sam, I want to thank you very much for joining us today. Again, the name of his book is Your Life is Your Prayer. I wanted to let all of you know that next week I have a wonderful young gentleman, and I'd love to share these inspiring stories with you all. Someone who just recently went through their spiritual awakening. I'd love to hear awakening stories of empowerment and epiphanies. So we'll be speaking with him. I will be sharing more info on that on my website. As well, keep an eye out for Solvolution 2020. You actually could probably just type it in to Google and find it. As well, I spoke of earlier about my Knowing the Trail Masterclass here in Roanoke, Virginia, which is coming at the end of March. I didn't mention, though, that I will be putting out the online class. It's going to be actually a live class. You'll be spending the afternoon with me here online via Zoom, most likely. And you'll be getting more information on that soon. Until then, thank you very much, Sam Beasley, and everyone. Have a wonderful week. Namaste, amen, and I love you all. Bye-bye.